back to the Daily Grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back pickle biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
UFC light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier told ESPN.com that 2018 could be his last year of fighting. And that's interesting. I mean, Daniel Cormier has been vocal about it before and said that you'll never see him at age 40. And I believe he might be 39 now, 38. I mean, so with that being said, Daniel Cormier, you got to talk about it for a second, man. Daniel Cormier is a guy that is arguably the #1 pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. Of course, there's different criterias. You have to really set a criteria before you can say who is the #1 pound-for-pound. But depending on your fucking criteria, that man is Daniel Cormier. Let me explain why. Daniel Cormier is undefeated at heavyweight. The baddest man on the planet is always the heavyweights because, yeah, you can have the most technical skills of a Demetrius Johnson. That's all cool and all. But if you are Demetrius Johnson and you're in the octagon with Derek Lewis, I don't give a damn how technical you are. Swing and bang, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, the heavyweights are usually the baddest men on the planet. So back to Daniel Cormier. He was undefeated at heavyweight. He beat Frank Mir, I believe Andre Arlovsky, some of the heavyweight greats. Moved down to light heavyweight, 205 pounds. Only person he ever lost to in his entire career was John Jones, who was dirty both fights. And I say that because John Jones just knocked out Daniel Cormier at UFC 214, we all remember, took his belt back. John Jones popped dirty right afterward, boom. Daniel Cormier gets his belt back, and so you have to ask yourself, if John Jones had already popped dirty one time before, he already knew he had to walk a thin line and be extra careful with what he put in his body, why the hell does he pop for a second time versus Daniel Cormier? If you felt like you could beat Daniel Cormier inside your fucking heart, you would have been eating, you know what I'm saying, drinking nothing but, you would have been real careful with what you put in your body. And he wasn't. He popped. Boom. So with that being said, you have to believe John Jones was dirty for their first fight and the second fight. So with that being said, one of those losses was already overturned. The second loss was overturned due to steroids. The first loss, they didn't have USADA, so he never got caught, so it wasn't overturned. But let's say USADA wasn't placed back then, that would be overturned, and you would then have Daniel Cormier undefeated at heavyweight, moved down, undefeated at light heavyweight, reigning champion at light heavyweight, defending champion at light heavyweight. He has defended his title. He's also successful at multiple weight classes. The only reason he didn't want to keep going at heavyweight is because his teammate was the heavyweight champion, Cain Velasquez, and he's like, well, hey, I can probably make 205, do my thug thizzle, drop down. I ain't got to fight my teammate, best friend, and everything has worked out perfect. Now, Daniel Cormier does get a little bit of slack because he's not the most entertaining fighter. It's even from the casual fans. My brother, the microwave, you guys know he's casual, but one thing he does say is whenever he saw Daniel Cormier fight Anderson Silva, he was ready to see Anderson Silva in there striking, and the fact that Daniel Cormier had, laid on him, had the size advantage, wrestled him up, it's not always entertaining. So Daniel Cormier takes slack for that or whatever reason. But another thing, like I was talking about with Tyron Woodley, Daniel Cormier is a very fucking stand-up man. He's very professional. The way he carries himself, yes, in the backstage, I'm not talking about who is he really inside. I'm talking about the way he portrays himself and carries himself as a professional. Nothing but respect for Daniel Cormier. Great husband, father, and that's another thing he said about retiring here. He said it's time for this man, it's time for his career. Talking about his son, I think Daniel Cormier Jr., I believe it was a junior in the article, and he said, I've been doing professional sports since I was 15 years old, so it's time for me to essentially pass the torch to my son. So with that being said, Daniel Cormier does have a title fight coming up with Volkan Ozdemir at UFC 220 in Boston. Also on that card, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. That's going to be a hell of a fight, and that should really, some people pull this move because, to up their buys or up their, it's like, oh, I'm going to retire. A lot of people say this, I'm going to retire, and they actually don't retire, but they say it before the fight to make people care more about that fight. And you could say that about Daniel Cormier. Is he making you care more about this fight by saying this? Yes, but it's also the truth. And when you lay out Daniel Cormier's legacy, you got to think about that. And we might only see Daniel Cormier back in the octagon 3 more times, 4 if we're lucky. So you might want to watch those and be a part of that, because this dude's going to go down in MMA history, not only as a fighter, but he's also a commentator extraordinaire. Not only a commentator, he's doing the analyst work Joe Rogan's doing. This dude is on his way to, not, I don't want to say replacing Joe Rogan, but whenever Joe Rogan decides to finally retire and move on to just do podcasts and stand-up comedy, and decides that the UFC workload is, he just is going to let Daniel Cormier take the torch. And Daniel Cormier is fucking great at that job. Doug Rose, you know what I'm saying? How can you not love Daniel Cormier? Colby Covington, you can hate him and you want, but how did Daniel Cormier Colby Covington? I fucking love Daniel Cormier. What the fuck you telling me, dude? With that being said, this could be the last year of his fight. Make sure you buy the motherfucking pay-per-view. UFC 220, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. Taking out them cuss words. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOWG.